They tell you BDSM is safe, as long as there's consent. But consent is not a signature on a document. Consent is a state, a condition in which your judgment is fully intact. Consent extracted after someone has dismantled your judgment isn't consent. It is the completion of a hunt. Today's story ends with a man's jaw broken. That tooth became the evidence that pulled a wealthy family's daughter out of a twisted hell. The way predators privatize and instrumentalize another human being is astonishingly symmetrical, a perfect mirror image. This is not a gender issue, but a structural issue of exploitation. We'll examine 3 arenas: the hunt in daylight, Act 1, the hunt in the shadows, Act 2, and the hunt inside the dopamine economy, Act 3. 3 acts for men, 3 acts for women, side by side. Male predators who privatize and instrumentalize women split into 2 orbits. The one who wants a life in the daylight uses pregnancy to claim a wife, or simply milks her for money and gifts, the classic gigolo play. The one who lives in the shadows pushes her into the sex trade and lives off her as a pimp, or sells her outright. Men who turn women into instruments for profit don't only exist in the underworld. They exist in broad daylight. They study technique, the talk, the bedroom, and some even have their genitals surgically tuned. If the target is a wealthy married woman, they extract cash and gifts. If the target is a wealthy family's unmarried daughter, the goal is pregnancy and marriage. My university classmate, I'll call her Namhee, was methodical and rational about everything. She had a boyfriend who looked perfectly ordinary. But when I finally learned who he really was, he was a hunter, through and through. He belonged to the type that gaslights a woman through sex to install himself as the legal husband of a rich man's daughter. The only difference between him and a back alley pimp was whether he chose an unstable life in the shadows or a stable one in the light. The psychology and the hunting pattern were identical. His method is what we now call BDSM. Back then the term barely existed in Korea. Pleasure and pain used as hormonal terrorism against the brain. A delicate trap that reduces a person to a psychological sex slave. It began during the year Namhee was retaking her college entrance exams. Her family was well off, so she enrolled in the expensive full-course program. Every subject. He was poor. He signed up for one single cheap subject, and spent his time plotting to change his fortune by marrying a rich man's daughter. He picked a target from the girls in the full-course class. That target was Namhee. He understood that if she got into a top university far away, he could never own her. So he set out to drag her down to his own level. He approached her playing the innocent, kissed her, and slowly raised her sexual curiosity and impulses, until he finally led her into sex. From that point on, he engineered her life so that sex consumed more hours than studying. Whenever she resisted and said she had to go study, he'd hold her back. Just one more time, the last one. And little by little, he conditioned her into masochism. What started as spanking escalated into S&M play that broke her mind apart. Her grades collapsed. Caught in a violent collision between her own rational nature and instincts that had been forced onto her, her emotional regulation gave out. She ended up in psychiatric treatment. A once peaceful household was wrecked by their daughter's constant hysteria. And exactly as he had calculated, she gave up the top university and enrolled at a local one. Namhee and I were busy with department activities every single day. Then one afternoon, he came looking for her. He looked straight at me, smirked, and walked away. A smile so confident it was arrogant. I was baffled. He's not handsome. He has nothing going for him as a man. His girlfriend spends every day with another guy, and he isn't even worried? Where does that confidence come from? I got my answer at her family's dinner table. An argument broke out between Namhee and her younger sister, and the furious sister blurted out everything in front of their parents. How the 2 of them had been in and out of motels all through her exam year. Cornered, Namhee exploded. I tried to calm her down, and she punched me in the face. More than shocked, I was incredulous. And I let her have it. So you're a coward? You throw a fist at someone's face without warning? Did I look that easy to you? Is it fine to dump your rage on whoever seems harmless? Were you always this contemptible? She flinched at the cold rebuke, let the anger drain out of her, and sank to the floor. Her parents told her to go shower and cool off, and she left the meal half-eaten. While she was gone, her mother and sister told me everything that had happened. But one piece still didn't fit. I was still a virgin then, with no real understanding of what happens between men and women. From the sister's account alone, I couldn't grasp how he had domesticated a proud rich girl so completely. A few days later, I called him out for private talk. He thought I was just another poor kid from a coal mining town, so his guard was down. I baited him. How did you land a rich girl and make her act like your wife? He grinned, triumphant. Guys as poor as us, we fix our fate by landing one rich daughter. And you tame her with sex. Are you a virgin? Then you wouldn't know. Let me teach you something. He laid it all out. The step-by-step method for getting her into bed, and then how S&M play was used to break her psychology down completely and turn her into a slave. After I'd heard the whole disgusting boast, I said flatly, "Too bad. Her parents have ordered her to break up with you immediately. She's the eldest daughter. She won't defy them." And out of his mouth came this, "That won't work. Guess I'll have to get her pregnant." Something in me snapped. There was nothing left worth hearing. I beat him without mercy. He lost consciousness 3 times. Each time I grabbed his collar, woke him, and made him tell me in detail exactly what he had done to her. I hit him like I meant to shatter his jaw, and a molar flew out. I picked that tooth up, brought it to her parents, and set it in front of them as evidence. He will never come near her again. Don't worry. After that, I took on the job of correcting the distorted sexual habits he had taught her. We never once slept together. She clung to me, begging me, almost threatening me, to date her until I left for the army, saying she'd kill herself otherwise. Her mind needed repair, so I willingly accepted that contract relationship. Her sexual patterning was badly damaged. The instant we kissed, her tongue went in, her hands went straight for my body, automatic, indiscriminate. Korea in the 90s was still conservative enough to talk openly about virginity. I pushed her back firmly and told her, if you go in tongue first, grabbing at a man's body, moaning from the start, nobody will respect you. They'll take your body and discard you. No one will take you seriously. You were taught sex wrong. Relearn it, starting from a kiss. Don't get worked up. Don't perform. Throughout that contract relationship, I deliberately kissed her only in places where anyone could appear at any moment. A school corridor, the middle of a stairwell. Be nervous. In the beginning you're supposed to be nervous. Even with whoever you date next, be nervous first. Every single time, nervous like it's the first time. I removed the switch he had installed, blind obedience wired to arousal, and replaced it with something she could control herself. Healthy tension. Only once her broken patterning was back to normal did I leave for the army with a clear conscience. After completing my military service, I visited her family and received their heartfelt gratitude. Nam-hee was engaged to the eldest son of a wealthy family. In the underworld, there are men who extort women. What separates them from the daylight hunters is simple. They instrumentalize her and take the money she earns from selling sex. They either drag her down to the bottom or prey on the women already living there. After I enlisted, at a dabong, a tea room at the last bus stop on the front line, a woman I called Sister K told me stories from the sex trade. In my head they clicked into place beside what had happened to Nam-hee, like pieces of a grotesque puzzle. The objective was always the same: total privatization and total instrumentalization of a woman. The shadow males, the thugs, the pimps, were far more blatant and barbaric than the daylight gaslighters. Their noose was debt bondage, the inescapable advance payment. Debt, mixed with violence and control, until her reason went numb. Every story Sister K whispered to me had a woman caught in that debt trap. They begin as kind saviors. A naive woman is desperate, a family member's hospital bill, a younger sibling's tuition, and he presses a lump sum into her hand and tells her not to worry. That was the sound of a door to hell swinging open. Room rent, cosmetics, rental fees for her hostess dress, and if she was sick and missed a single day, an absence fee, plus absurd late interest, stacked onto the ledger. She could sell her body to strangers dozens of times a day, and the debt would not shrink, it snowballed. When she couldn't bear it and tried to run, a merciless beating was waiting. I'll tell your family you're a whore. I'll hand you over to the fishermen on some remote island. Threats and violence, over and over. Worn down by terror and exhaustion. The reasoning that would let her resist simply lets go. Stripped even of the will to escape, she becomes the perfect host to feed on for life. A machine that brings in money. That frontline zone was full of military checkpoints, which is exactly why quite a few women who had fled the hell ended up there. And they protected each other. This structure of exploitation is the same everywhere in the world. Pimps approach as saviors, build psychological dependence, then use force, fraud, and coercion to load her with debt and seize ownership of her very soul. In that process, what forms is trauma bonding, an intense attachment to the abuser. The stories those tea room women whispered to me came straight out of that bloody hunting ground in the shadows. At the very bottom lay the abductions of the 1980s during the regime of Lee Soon-ja's husband, human trafficking at the scale of a national disaster, committed by devils wearing human faces. As documented in Korean scholarship, the age of pleasure and fear. Korea's entertainment and pleasure industry and human trafficking in the 1980s. Under the regime's deregulation of the entertainment industry, demand had to be met, so ordinary women walking down ordinary streets were abducted at random and sold to establishments. It didn't stop at abduction. The testimony of one woman who escaped and fled to that region became the compass of my life. After I was discharged, it's why I went around preaching to the younger women in my department. Be careful with alcohol, be careful with sex. Gang rape, then rape repeated daily, until she stopped crying and complied. Then they order her to take customers. If she refuses, they come in with a knife, cut her, and condition her through the fear of death. In the end, survival instinct leaves her no choice but to obey. And even her sanitary pads were added to the ledger as debt. Any escape attempt met a merciless beating. Places like the Rose Tea Room of Death openly existed. That was the era. To them, a woman was not a breathing human being. She was a slab of meat, convertible into cash. As institutions and laws strengthened women's rights, the weapon changed. A former host at a host bar put it plainly. They were trained to make the customer feel loved, but it was all a strategy to make her spend more. Physical confinement evolved into psychological confinement, and then drugs entered the equation. Among shadow hunters, so-called hunting manuals are said to circulate quietly, which aphrodisiac, which stimulant, GHB, which narcotic to administer, tailored to the target's temperament and situation. GHB is the notorious example. Colorless and odorless, it is slipped into drinks and used in sexual crimes. It has even been advertised on the promise that the victim will fall unconscious and temporarily lose all memory. In one real case, a pharmacist mixed GBL, GHB's precursor, into alcohol in an attempted sexual assault and received 4 years in prison. Once absorbed, GBL acts as a powerful central nervous system depressant. Muscle relaxation, severe memory loss, impaired cognition, loss of motor function. It renders the victim unconscious or helpless, unable to resist. And it erases the very evidence she would need afterward to contradict him. A UK study covering 3 years of rape cases found sedatives the victim had not voluntarily taken in just 2% of samples. Meaning, covert drugging is the minority. The overwhelming weapon of choice is still alcohol. When alcohol and drugs combine to devastate memory, the victim can no longer even remember what was done to her. The males of the past bound the body with advanced debt and abduction. The males of today bind the brain and the hormones with drugs and intermittent reward, and in their own words, they squeeze until she's dry. It isn't only men who instrumentalize others and strip mine their lives. The mirror image exists. In the daylight, marriage and pregnancy are used to seize a life. In the shadows, affection is the medium used to extract money. There was a common tactic women once used to shackle a man they wanted, using pregnancy. A condom hurts me inside, without one it doesn't. An IUD is only given to women who've given birth, they won't fit one for a virgin. In an era before the internet, a man who knew nothing about the details of contraception believed it easily. So he'd put the condom on only at the last moment, or try to withdraw. But that was the setup, designed to make him believe the failure was his own mistake. Contraception was sabotaged deliberately. A punctured condom, semen transferred without his knowledge, and pregnancy followed. And the man blames himself for mistiming it. This is the most common form of the female hunt, pregnancy, as terrorism, and it splits into 2 types, the climb and the claim. The climb, conceiving the child of a powerful or wealthy man to elevate her own status. In one study of paternity fraud in Jamaica, the most frequently cited motive was economic security. In the United States, paternity fraud became enough of a problem that states including Texas passed legislation on it. The claim, shackling the man she considers ideal by getting pregnant. The case I lived through myself was exactly this, a meticulously executed pregnancy trap by Lee Soon-ja of the Lee royal family. Then there's marriage promise fraud, dangling marriage as bait to extract housing deposits, business capital, or parents' medical bills. In one Korean survey, unmarried men ranked the gold digger, the woman who approaches with impure intent, as the single worst form of marriage fraud. Then the settlement shakedown, or honey trap, using child protection and sexual violence statutes as a threat to extract money. In Singapore, a woman in her 20s who conspired with her boyfriend to falsely claim she was a minor in order to extort money was convicted of extortion. The Korean version. After a night of drinking, a demand for a settlement payment backed by the threat of a rape complaint. Where pregnancy is the lever, there's even the trick of buying fake ultrasound images online to manufacture credibility. In Japan's resale platform Mercury, the sale of fetal ultrasound photos was completely banned, announced in August 2025, effective September 1st, citing fears they were being used in fake pregnancy scams. The female side has its own atrocities. The Black Widow, the sham marriage type, is a classic shadow hunt targeting old age and diminished judgment. The case exposed in March 2016 is the textbook example. A 62-year-old woman and two accomplices approached an 81-year-old man with dementia and a large fortune, staged a marriage, and completed the legal registration. They then siphoned off assets worth roughly 9 billion won. The old man was left utterly neglected. He died alone, the month before they were caught. This is the anchor story. Judgment collapses, legal paperwork is manufactured in the gap, and everything is privatized. In bars, high-end clubs, room salons, she seduces him, turns him into a regular, plays the girlfriend, and squeezes. It's the standard playbook. The weapon here is a dopamine economy built on love. Once he's soaked in oxytocin, the reward becomes intermittent. She goes silent. She lets him see her with another customer. She engineers jealousy, and he grows anxious, starts paying, starts clinging. Where the pimp fastened a leash made of debt, she fastens one made of affection. And the modern era adds drugs. The same colorless, odorless GHB and GBL we saw on the male side are used identically in the hunting of regular customers. The drink is spiked, the memory is severed, and the next morning, you don't remember last night? After everything I did for you. Severing his emotional ties with the outside world, systematically isolating him, and binding him exclusively to her with guilt and oxytocin. The same weapon, aimed in the opposite direction, serving the same purpose, submission. As the law changed, the shackle moved from the body to the brain. Next, romance scams and sponsor hunting. Contrary to the stereotype, Barclays July 2024 UK data found that 59% of romance scam victims were men. But here's the detail that matters. Men were the majority by headcount, while women lost far more per case, about £8,900 on average, roughly 2.5 times the £3,500 men lost. That's hard evidence that male and female hunters pursue different objectives along different trajectories. And according to the FBI, in 2021 roughly 24,000 romance scam victims in the United States reported losses of about $1 billion. They perform victimhood on social media, hints of depression, hints of suicide, to trigger oxytocin and induce the transfer of money. Here, the true weapon is not a physical drug, but the spatial limitation of social media itself, a twisted sanctuary where emotions feel hyperconnected, yet physical reality remains completely hidden and unverifiable. Yet, this hunt is not confined to digital manipulation. It escalates back into lethal, physical reality when necessary. There is a terrifying conviction where the neurochemical weapon ran full circle. As reported by the BBC, Adina Mihai and Madeline Dumitru operated as a predatory team in the UK, using sexual lure to bypass vigilance and administering GBL to systematically paralyze men in order to rob them. 2 of the victims died, and in August 2026, they were sentenced to 17 years each. This case serves as the ultimate, empirical proof that the identical weapon operates in both directions, whether through the pixelated screen or a spiked drink. The conclusion is the same as on the male side. The males of the past bound the body with debt and abduction. The females of today bind the brain, the receptors, and the hormones with digital isolation, drugs, and intermittent reward. Only the tools changed. The instinct, to privatize a human being, to turn a person into an instrument, is identical. To survive this hunting ground, you have to recognize the signals that someone is turning you into an instrument before it's too late. If even one item on this instrumentalization checklist applies to your relationship, stop it now and put distance between you. Section 1. The open dopamine environment, where women's power has grown. If sadistic or masochistic demands arrive dressed up as consent, refuse flatly. If your memory blacks out or fragments after drinking or after sex, if anything at all feels wrong, suspect a drug crime and report it to the police immediately. Be alert to early demands for access to or control over your money, your business assets, or your reputation. Check whether they withhold information on something as critical as contraception, or quietly shift all the responsibility onto you. Check whether they are subtly severing your friendships and family ties and steering you toward isolation. Section 2. Conservative environments. Watch closely if the sexual intensity or physical escalation rises abnormally fast at the very start of a relationship. Notice if your rational life, your studying, your work, keeps getting interrupted, and if, just one more time, the last one keeps repeating. And again, check whether they are cutting you off from friends and family, engineering your isolation, and steering you toward isolation. Remember these signals. When someone plants a flag in your territory and reaches for the leash of your own hormones, sever their grip, reject the trap, and walk away entirely.